The first time that I actually held a coin was probably Doge, Bitcoin being 200K, Ethereum being around 15K.
Dennis, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Lark.
Look, we got some big things to talk about today, and I want to start off with this. What got you into crypto in the first place? I know we all have our own stories of our journey of how we got here, but what's your story? How'd you get in?
So I want to say the first time I've heard about crypto was probably 2013, 14, but I was really dismissive of it. I had a friend that was big in computer hardware. He was building PCs, and one of his friends doing overclocking, they got into Bitcoin mining. But I never thought so much of it. The first time that I actually held a coin was probably Doge, because I first got into crypto mining Dogecoin. So this was college years, 2015 or so. Dogecoin had its first rally up, and people were early miners of Doge were very quickly seeing their return on investment, and that's why I got into that wave. Set up a couple machines in my dorm room, just taking advantage of the electricity there, and yeah, that was my first official coin.
That's awesome, actually. Dogecoin, man. See, meme coins bring people into crypto. I love it. That's really cool. Do you still have any of that Dogecoin, or just sell it all?
I don't even have any of the old stuff because it was way too early. I didn't even have wallets, right? I would send from the mining pool. It was like a multi-pool that it chooses what to mine, and then it directly sends to an exchange. And the exchange back then was Cryptsy. It was like way too early. It was before like Bittrex and stuff, and the whole exchange went down. So I still have all those deposit emails. You get, hey, we receive your Doge. I can see those amounts. I add them up, but they're all gone.
You're saying, go back and look at those some days. It's like, yep, that's generational wealth right there. All right,
Yes.
in Dogecoin. Time in crypto. This is what it comes down to. Now, look, you've been in crypto for a while, and when you've been in crypto for a while, you hit seven figures. That's kind of what happens. I'm always surprised when people are just like, oh, I can't believe this guy who's been in crypto for all these years is, a 7-figure plus portfolio. So I want to ask you, when did you first hit 7 figures, and what did it feel like when you looked and you're like, holy crap, there's $1 million?
I think it was around late DeFi summer. So I want to say, getting into summer 2020-ish. I was pretty early on Compound, on like early stages of like taking advantage of the yield. We're doing it through InstaDApp, leveraging up, and then afterwards is like rebasing token. I hit it pretty well on like Ampleforth, and on later on I was like on YFI. I think after YFI, after Sushi, I was close to that like 7-figure. I don't remember exactly. I think by the end of 2020. And it was weird, to be honest. It was it was paper money. It completely felt like paper money, and because I never had any like substantial amount of money like even deposited in my account, and at that point it was just okay. On crypto side, I feel this like complete ease to spend 5 ETH on a new farm. But in real life, I'm like, I don't want to buy that thing if it's more than $200, and it's just this big disconnect. And looking back at it today, I think lesson that I learned a couple more times after is once you hit a certain kind of portfolio percentage and portfolio milestone, it's good to familiarize yourself for a while in that range, so like you don't get too hyped up, and you don't overcommit to things either, so that you know, okay, once I'm in 7 figures, can I farm with 6 figures somewhere, or commit 6 figures to a opportunity? Because it's very different when you're versus like if I'm doing 5K 10K to a thing, the liquidity is so different, and it's you can't do a meme coin with a 100K position. But first time you get there, you'll try to do that again, and oftentimes you get burned.
Yeah, the game changes. The game changes as your portfolio grows. I was talking about this recently. If you have under 10K portfolio, the things you're doing in the market are going to be dramatically different from the guy who's got a 7, 8, or 9-figure portfolio. You simply have different options available to you and different things that are going to be worth your ROI in terms of time, like airdrop farming, for example. It's interesting for a lot of small guys, it's really, really valuable. For some of the big guys, still very valuable, depending on the farm, of course, but you're not going to be chasing every opportunity. You're just looking for the high value opportunities where you can take 6 or 7 figures and put it in.
Yeah, when you commit that capital, like sometimes it's also like slippage, right? And how much liquidity a coin has. Like, sure, people always chase like, hey, this micro cap coin is like 5 million, but if you can only put in like $1,000 and there's no liquidity, like oftentimes it's different crowd. So yeah, many things to consider.
Now, one thing I found very interesting about your story is that you've been in crypto for a long time, but you eventually ended up joining with one of the venture capital firms called M6. So, what was kind of the idea behind that? You'd been sort of, just doing it by yourself for a while, but why'd you decide to basically, put on the suit figuratively?
So really, I think in crypto you gotta have your own tribe, and I don't. It might sound kind of grim, but a lot of times it's like you and your friend circle versus others. Because at the end of the day, we know how the cycles go and narratives that come and go. Right? You got to be at least honest with your inner circle of like, okay, this narrative, I am in this early, and I'm sharing this with you guys. Versus like, okay, I'm not saying like people necessarily do this, but different message you might share with on social media versus with your inner circle. So I think really having a core group of friends that you invest with, that you trust, and whatever you're talking about, right? Like, let's say if I try to do this with my followers as well, but there's always a delay. Like if I'm getting into Ethereum ecosystem, I would tell them first, right? And I'm getting this, farming this layer 2, farming this new airdrop, right? And I want them to have the best returns as I do. And that was part of the reason why I wanted to find a group. Another reason was these guys are very, very smart, kind of around the same capital range as I am, and we can look at similar levels of opportunity. So
Mm-hmm.
we function as syndicate level. We don't take outside money. We don't have to adhere to anything. Just purely looking for alpha in the market. And what ends up happening is because we have different areas. So I look at YouTube, what people are saying on YouTube. We have people in very connected in the Korea ecosystem, right? Two of our other partners are Korean. They look at what people are trading on Upbit, on Bithumb, like what kind of degens are trading, and I can't even understand the language. It's just completely different alpha. And we have someone that's based in India and Dubai, and it's also completely different. Like every single type of deal there is very like grassroots. Yeah, and that's another side to diversify. And just like once you can find the core group, you know that your expertise don't overlap, but you
Mm-hmm.
can be aligned that you have a common goal, which is like finding alpha. Coming together makes a lot of sense because then your brand becomes like much bigger.
Yeah, it's hard when you go it alone, to be
Yeah.
honest. And having friends, making connections. And look, I want to tell everybody listening, by the way, just so you guys are fully aware of this, you don't have to be an influencer, a content creator, a venture capital firm. There are so many ways to connect with people in this space. There are so many Telegram groups and Discord groups and stuff like that. And you can find other people that are at your level and connect with those people and help each other grow, help each other find opportunities, work together. Like now is a great time in the market to be doing that. So just keep that in mind, okay? Just because the levels of the game are different, you can still play the game at your level and be very successful and then get to the next level. Okay. So just keep that in mind. Now I want to get to the next question here. And that is, look, you're doing the VC thing, you're doing the content creation thing. I mean, your YouTube's been providing crazy good value. You've been blowing up recently. So congratulations on that, without a doubt. Now, I want to ask, through this journey of, growing your wealth and all these sorts of things, how's your life changed over time? Being a crypto investor, being a content creator, and also, of course, hitting 7 figures plus.
Honestly, that number doesn't really mean anything because my lifestyle hasn't really changed. I still live in like 2-bedroom apartment that I have always lived in. It's just a lot more flexibility and ability to feel okay even in bear, right? Like I got to kind of this level in the last bull run, and throughout the bear market, sure, portfolios are down, but I'm able to say, okay, like I'm confident, and I've been in this cycle 2 times before, and at least for my Bitcoin Ethereum positions, I'm perfectly okay holding them even when they have drawn down to 20K. And that's not going to impact me substantially life wise, right? I can do whatever I want still. So that's one. And then still having like capital to say, okay, I'm not like building from ground up, and I'm able to hire a team. If I want to build YouTube, I can have editors, I can have researchers, I can have people helping me out, even in the bear market, right? So I'm kind of pre-revenue. I can build up that like team and pay off some of that ignorance debt, so that I don't have to see revenue first before going in. So I think that has helped even on our social media a lot as well, like having a team to help out. And I can promise them, like, no matter what the revenue will look like, I can support you guys for the next year, 2 years, just purely for growing the brand. That's something like the capital really unlocked. In terms of like life, not much. Like I'm not really a living it up type of guy, so I just still same place, same time.
More security, more options,
Yep.
but you haven't got the Lambo yet. You haven't got the $100,000
I don't think
protect
I've
fleet
ever
yet.
will. Lambo's not my thing.
Yeah. What do you drive? Out of curiosity.
I drive an SUV. I drive a Genesis. Yeah, it's
Nice.
comfortable, but it's good.
Yeah, nice. All right, rock and roll. SUVs are good. Yeah, I am also not in the Lambo guy. I'd never be able to get it down my ramp for my place. But I've got just a Tesla Model Y, very practical, family friendly car.
Yep.
So here you go, guys. See, look, everybody, you can hit 7 figures. And you don't have to buy a Lambo. It's not a necessary part of the package. Okay.
Rather buy some Ethereum, like any coin will outperform that. So
that's right. Of course, that's a big thing too, is that there's always the opportunity cost when it comes to making any of these purchases. And to be clear, you guys can treat yourselves once in a while. If you want to buy a watch, you can buy a watch. If you want to buy a car, you can buy a car, whatever. It's all good. The thing to do, though, is to not let this sort of lifestyle creep come in, because look, some of the guys that you're seeing on social media who do have the cars and the flying private all the time, all this kind of stuff, some of these guys are, one, going to be broke in a year, or two, they have so much money. And some of these guys in crypto have more money than you possibly realize, like crazy money. And they're on a different level. You're not at that level. Don't worry about you don't worry about that. Maybe one day you get that level too, but you don't need to reach for that level. For those guys buying the watches, the cars, the flights and stuff like that, it's as much of an incidental cost as you buying a coffee for some of these guys. Again, they have so much money. It's not even worth thinking about that level of the game unless you're at that level of the game, and trying to keep up appearances and trying to look rich. It's a quick way to the poorhouse, actually.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, it's just like, especially at this point of the market, like I just can't see myself spending for the sake of spending. It's just buy more Bitcoin. Like, why would you ever spend? Everything just seems ultra expensive right now.
Yeah, the opportunity cost is definitely high doing any of those sorts of purchases.
Yeah.
And what about like I guess simple stuff, like when you fly, you still fly in economy? Or you fly business
Depends on the flight.
first?
So yeah, I like, for example, when I flew to China, it was like a 15-hour flight, and I flew business so that I could sleep. That kind of stuff is good.
Yeah, those are the nice little luxuries where it's like that's worth spending a bit extra money on. Getting somewhere and like not being totally destroyed. It's got its benefits.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. So hey, look, you've been in crypto for a long time, and anybody who's been in crypto more than a day basically has probably made a mistake at some point. And the guy who's been in a day probably has made the biggest mistake anyway. But anyway, over time, we all make mistakes. So what's been, I guess, one of your biggest losses that you've had in the market so far? And what happened, and what was sort of the lesson you learned from it?
Yeah. So I have a very gambler mentality, I guess. Like, I know myself really well. So this is why I like, limit myself to position sizes and certain leverage if I trade at all. But I find that especially when the bull starts to kick off, this happened in 2021, when I'm very, have a win streak of hitting things on chain, new project launches, etc. This was around the Olympus time. This was around like LBPs and DeFi stuff. And there was this rug called Anubis DAO. I don't know if you're You know that one?
I think I remember the name. Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically a Olympus style fork that was backed by Dogecoin and Shiba Inu. Now that we look at it, it's just completely ridiculous. Like, why would you invest in that, right? But at that time, if we were there, the entire market was talking about Olympus, right, and the forks of it, and they were doing well. Like, you could do this as long as you have a legitimate enough team. You could take another asset, copy the exact same model, you'll be successful, right? $100 million launch. So I did that one, and I thought I knew some of the guys on the team, even though they were like semi and CT people. And I was the largest rug victim on Anubis.
Oh,
Yeah, so I lost 1.2 million in like just 24 hours through a rug and through some people that I thought I knew, and it's pretty bad, but not not too dramatic. I guess that was like a good wake up call to say, okay, I've been on a win streak. Maybe I shouldn't commit 7 figures on a dog coin fork of Olympus DAO. Like, what am I
seems
doing?
obvious in hindsight, right?
Seems obvious
But
now.
when you're in it, man, when you're in it, you're just like, this makes sense.
This totally makes sense. Yeah.
I'm probably not betting enough. I should put in 2. You know.
You know, that's exactly what I continue to think, right? So it's always especially when I was working up kind of the portfolio sizes, right? It's
Mhm.
you just continue wanting to bet more and more instead of like respecting your minimum position size that you take on a risky position. You start to take on like percentage of your portfolio, right? So that it just keeps increasing and increasing, and the high just keeps coming. So that's clear gambling mentality, and at some point it just has to go. So
Yeah. It's really true. So you gotta it's this space is very hard because when you start getting money, when you start getting the ability to launch coins out of nowhere, and it requires very little effort to whip up a website and a new coin and get the hype going. And unfortunately, you have to be super careful who you trust in the cryptocurrency space. There's so many things going on out here, and you just have to be very, very careful. And look, I've been burned by people I thought I could trust and turned out I couldn't. And you've been burned by people you thought you could trust, turned out you couldn't. So guys, be careful out there, okay? Always do your own thinking, always do your own research, never ape blindly.
like a good rule of thumb I have now is like I know what I'm comfortable with, and once I feel that okay, wow, like my usual position size is doing really well, and this has significantly grown my portfolio, I always take a pause. Just take a week off. Like, don't commit to any new position. You come back, kind of have a reset, and you're able to go back to the same flow you had before. And now you have double the capital and even more safe buffer instead of like always leveraging up.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Play it safe, guys. Play it safe, because those big losses, I mean, look, when we talk about losses of those kind of numbers, it's dramatic for a lot of people. But, when you've got a big enough portfolio, maybe you're risking 5, 10, 20% of your portfolio, for example, some of the stuff. And look, the losses never get easy to stomach when you have huge number of losses. You factor some managed level of risk and stuff into it, but still, guys, play it safe out there, okay? Because one of the biggest effects, not even necessarily the monetary loss, is actually the psychological hit that a big loss like that can do. So, just be careful. It can really knock your confidence for a while, this kind of stuff. Now, I want to go on to the next question. What is your bull run plan? Here we are at the time we're recording this video. Very exciting time in the market. Bitcoin halving coming soon. Bitcoin ETFs just launched. The last year has been crazy. There's been so many altcoins that have popped off like nuts. What are you doing? What's your bull run plan?
So I really want to be conservative in this bull run, and I think conservative on my standard. Like, I think having a base case of like expectation for Bitcoin, expectation for Ethereum, and then having I made a video about this, but like having multiple overlapping exit strategies, and if one of them hit, I will exit. So I have basically a price target for Bitcoin, Ethereum. So Bitcoin being 200K, Ethereum being around 15K. If either of those happen, I think I'm good with that, right? I think majority of the market would have turned out well. Portfolio would have been up a lot. Totally fine to exit. Now, if that happens this year, if that happens in 2 months, I will still exit, right? So I'm not going to be greedy and say, this is the super cycle and there's going to be another year after, right? Because that would be getting kind of crazy.
It's dangerous thinking.
Yeah, right. And then the other side is, if, for example, things happen very slowly, right? Bitcoin becomes very slowly adopted, and it just slowly trends, and maybe we're like 60 to 100K for year and a half. Then at some point, I still have to call it cycle ending, right? Because usually the cycle ends every 4 years, and looking at how it matches with the Bitcoin halving, that's like a year, maybe 18 months after. So latest, end of 2025, I will look to exit this cycle. So even, once that time comes around, even if Bitcoin, Ethereum don't hit those targets, I will still exit. And then I have a third, which is more like monitoring the market. So these are, typical indicators how you look at, like the 200-day moving average, right? 21 weekly moving average, higher highs and higher lows, and how the long-term uptrend is still being respected. So that's kind of my third criteria. If the uptrend really gets broken and confirmed to be broken, all bets are off. And when the price shows me that it's drawn down super significantly, I have to reassess as well. So with those three kind of price target, time target, and monitoring of the market, I feel like I'm prepped enough for the next year and a half to exit somewhere in there.
Are you going to ride any coins through the bear market, or are you going to completely exit?
I would say Bitcoin, Ethereum. I'm confident holding those two. I held them in the last bear. I know a lot of people have other, altcoins that they have, like Solana. People like to hold like XRP, Chainlink, Cardano. Maybe for now, if I have to pick two that I lock up for 5 years from now, it would be still Bitcoin, Ethereum. But maybe something really truly breaks out. We'll see.
Yeah, we're still early in the crypto space. I think a lot of people forget about that. It feels like we're late sometimes, but actually then realize 95% of the world doesn't own crypto and has barely even heard of it, and they're going to come. They will adopt at some point. Now, I want to get into some very specifics here. Altcoins. What altcoins are you watching right now? Drop us a few names. What are you watching? Why are you watching it? What are the narratives, and what are you kind of thinking about the short or long term, I guess, of these coins?
Yeah, so for this year, there's kind of like four main areas. So AI is popular, but obviously, like AI, I think I'm mainly looking for new coins, because the existing coins render is pretty cool, but it's it's kind of a old legacy one at this point. They're widely adopted, but there are not many other options. And then for gaming, I think infra side, I'm looking at Superverse, like heavily. I have a heavy bag of Super as well. Just what they're working on with how the Super token will integrate, and how not only they're not only like technical infra, but also a lot more community driven. Yeah, very bullish on Super. This one is a bit more short term. I would say like next 2 months or so. This quarter, we'll see big moves for it. And then individual games, there's so many good games coming up. Off the grid, Shrapnel is pretty good. I think it's still undervalued at this point. Dr. Disrespect's that drop. You have Treeverse is cool. Aperon. Just so many good games. These guys all raised like 8 figures in 2021, and they're finally able to launch their full games now. So now you don't have to take their word for it. You try the game, and then you can potentially see if you like the game before you invest. Yeah, and then sleeper picks. I have one called DeSo, Decentralized Social. So this one I have covered on the channel as well. This is I think the only infra that makes sense in decentralized social media, because people, they tried friend tech, right? People realize that like social fi and glorified DeFi farming just doesn't work for that narrative, and you really have to build infra that can allow like true Web3 social media, decentralized YouTube, decentralized Reddit, Twitter, to be built. And DSO is, as far as I see, the only blockchain able to sustain that. They have successfully replicated every type of social media. So that is one I have a heavy bag of. And then some of the, ZK layer 2 and modular layer 2s, that will be a big trend first half of this year. Yeah, so I think you're familiar as well, like Manta, any kind of strong infra launching using Celestia, using eigenlayer restaking or eigenlayer DA in a modular paradigm. Those are very strong bets. So Manta, ZK Sync, we don't know when that's launching, but it's probably soon. Starknet.
Fingers crossed for a big airdrop, man. Let's go. Come on, ZK Sync. Let's do it.
So many people have been waiting for that one. ZK stuff is going to be good this year.
I like your picks. It's a lot of that stuff lines up with what I'm looking at. So I'm big on gaming, big on the whole sort of layer 2 space. There's just so many opportunities out there in the market, guys. So look, you don't have to take every opportunity. There's all kinds of stuff going on. And I like to stay in the areas that I've kind of really feel quite comfortable in. I specialize in, and I spend a lot of time looking at. I dabble in other places from time to time. Is there any trend that you maybe think is a bit overhyped right now?
Overhyped trend. I think the alternative layer 1s are kind of starting to come back a bit. So like Solana makes sense because Solana really has adoption that outside of Ethereum, right? When you talk about wallets, talk about developer activity, dApps, Solana is compatible. Other alternative layer 1s like Avalanche makes sense. Sure, they have a strong BD approach. If you're building on ETH, you could do AVAX if you can secure something strong with the team. But outside of that, there's so many other layer 1s that people just randomly propped up for the sake of, again, like scalability. Like we've been through this conversation like 3 times. It's I think that narrative is shifting back to layer 2s for a bit this year. So that's where I would say.
Interesting take for sure. Dennis, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. And guys, again, all the socials and stuff, go check it out. Follow his YouTube, follow him on Twitter. We'll see you in the next episode.